You may have heard of the secret before, also known as the law of attraction, the age-old technique of shifting your thoughts in order to shift your reality. But is there any scientific proof that such a phenomenon really exists? Hey lunatics, it's Lady Luna, and today we're taking a deep dive into a topic I've wanted to discuss for a long time. Scientific proof of the law of attraction. And believe it or not, there's actually a lot, so strap in. If you're new to my channel, my name is Lady Luna and I love making videos about metaphysical and mystical topics. So be sure to subscribe and hit the bell if you're into these types of topics. So, I've heard a lot of people online who either love the law of attraction or they think it's all superstition and don't really believe in it at all. Some people write it off as just positive thinking with no real outcome or hopelessly wishing for things instead of getting out and doing the work. These, however, are not accurate representations of the law of attraction, also known as LOA. It's not about wishing or wanting things. In fact, there's no such thing as practicing LOA or not practicing it. Everyone is following the law of attraction whether they're aware of it or not. This is because LOA is about thoughts, words, behaviors, and actions all having an effect on our reality. This is what we're going to prove today through science. The first amazing piece of evidence for LOA would be the placebo effect. For example, a patient goes to the doctor because they're having severe pain. The doctor gives them a sugar pill that doesn't really contain any medication at all, but since the patient thinks the pill is real, they take it and somehow they feel better, just by believing they're healing. This is a perfect example of how our thoughts can shape our reality. Let's take a deeper look at the placebo effect.
Let me show you the example of one subject that we scanned some time ago who gives a nice illustration of the placebo response. This was a young man who had a terrible rollover crush injury of his left upper extremity while he was on safari away from college one summer. He ended up having terrible burning pain in that arm. We brought him into the scanner and we found that when we stroked a particular area of his hand and his arm, he had terrible burning pain in that part of his hand and his arm. And this was represented by this area, by these slides here, which show increase in activity in all the areas of the brain involved with the processing and perception of pain. Now we had an IV in this young man and we told him that we were going to start a very powerful pain-relieving medication. And so we did that. And what we found is that his pain went down. He had a dramatic reduction in his pain. It went from, instead of a 7 out of 10, where 0 is no pain and 10 is the worst imaginable, it went from that 7 out of 10 down to a 3 out of 10. And what we found is that similarly, his brain activity went down as well. Significantly less activity in the brain in all of the areas involved with the processing and perception of pain. But what did we actually give him? Well, it turns out we gave him placebo. We hadn't actually started the active medication yet. When we actually gave him the medication, we found that there was even more reductions in his pain overall, and similarly, even greater reductions in his brain activity, suggesting that while placebo had a direct action on his brain, the active agent, the pharmacologic agent itself, had even more of an action on it.
Now, this isn't to say that we never need medication or proper medical care. Please never substitute regular medical treatments with the law of attraction alone. The idea is to use them together for the best result in your health or any other area of life. Believe it or not, the placebo effect can manifest in other medical ways besides medical treatments. Many people have actually experienced what's known as an emotional pregnancy before, meaning they think they're pregnant and they have all the symptoms of a pregnancy, but they aren't really pregnant at all. Their body is just responding to them believing they're pregnant.
This is the rare psychiatric disorder, pseudopsoriasis, in which the patient firmly believes she is pregnant and even develops symptoms of pregnancy. Symptoms of this condition include a swollen belly, breast engorgement and milk production, amenorrhea, or interruption of the menstrual cycle, the feeling of fetal movements, nausea and vomiting. These symptoms usually last for a few weeks, until they visit a doctor to confirm the pregnancy. If the woman doesn't see a doctor, the symptoms can last for 9 months or even years. Though this is common with females, there are case reports of men with pseudopsoriasis. There's a related disorder in men called Couvade syndrome. In this condition, the husband experiences similar symptoms as the pregnant wife, like morning nausea and backaches. But unlike pseudopsoriasis, these patients don't believe they are pregnant. So what causes pseudopsoriasis? The exact cause remains a mystery, but the medical experts think that the mind tricks the body to develop pregnancy symptoms.
So why is this able to happen? Why does what we think manifest into our reality? A great example of how this works can be observed in the work of late researcher Masaru Emoto. In his book, The Hidden Messages in Water, he shows examples of experiments he's done with water in various ways and the effect that words and sounds have on them. In the experiment, he spoke a positive phrase like "thank you" or "I love you" over the water, and then immediately froze it. The result was a beautiful snowflake-like structure. But when he spoke a negative phrase such as "I hate you" or "you're a fool," the water would become disgusting, brown, and shapeless when he froze it. Here are some more examples of his water experiment results. Now, not everyone takes Mr. Emoto's work seriously. Since he didn't carry out his experiments in a professional scientific setting, many just brush it off as pseudoscience. However, there are plenty of reasons to believe his findings hold water, pun intended. Mr. Emoto also had an experiment you can do at home all on your own just to prove to yourself how well this really works. It's called the rice experiment, and here's how it's done.
Dr. Emoto has conducted another interesting experiment. He placed rice into 3 glass beakers and covered it with water. And then every day for a month, he said, "Thank you" to one beaker, "You're an idiot" to the second, and the third one he completely ignored. After 1 month, the rice that had been thanked began to ferment, giving off a strong, pleasant aroma. The rice in the second beaker turned black, and the rice that was ignored began to rot.
Here's how you can do the rice experiment at home, which I highly suggest trying. It's actually very easy.
Since rice absorbs water when you cook it, you can basically conduct the same research Dr. Masaru did. I approached the experiment by purchasing 3 brand new glass containers. I cooked some rice and added the exact same amount of rice in each container. And every day for about 2 months, I'd spend 60 seconds per container telling them either negative or positive things. The container marked love. I'd say nice things such as "you're awesome" and "I love you." And to the container marked hate, I'd say horrible things such as "you don't deserve to live" and "you make me sick." And the container marked ignore, I'd do just that. It's been about 9 weeks now and it's finally over. And I'm happy to tell you that it's a success. This is what happened. Alright, so the container marked with love it's in quite good shape. It's a little yellow, but I'd probably eat it. Alright. And the container marked hate it's in bad shape. Alright, this is quite disgusting. There's no way I would even touch this. The container marked ignore it's in better shape than the container marked hate, but it's still quite disgusting.
So, if our thoughts and words can have such an effect on water, what effect does it have on us? We can actually find the answer to this within psychology. There's a psychological phenomenon known as the self-fulfilling prophecy that many consider to be the reason for the law of attraction. Here's how it works.
So what exactly is a self-fulfilling prophecy? Well, it's a prediction that causes a new behavior which makes the original prediction come true. Why? Because there's a link between belief and behavior. What you believe influences how you behave, and your behavior reinforces your beliefs, which reinforce your behaviors. This is a positive feedback loop between belief and behavior. In other words, your prediction comes true because you behave in a way that makes it happen, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. Think about all the times you predict your own failure or underestimate your ability and then you turn out to be correct. That's because you become what you think about.
So, we can see that even in psychology, it's well known that what we think dictates our behavior and much of our circumstances. But what about the effect of our thoughts on other people? There's yet another phenomenon in psychology known as the Pygmalion effect that's even more fascinating.
The Pygmalion effect is the phenomenon whereby higher expectations lead to higher performance. It can be best understood by a circle, where our beliefs about another person's abilities influence our actions toward the other person. This action has an impact on the other's beliefs about themselves. The beliefs about themselves cause the other's actions toward us, which again reinforce our beliefs about that person. And so on, and on, and on. The Pygmalion effect is also known as the Rosenthal experiment, named after a research of Robert Rosenthal at Harvard. In a first study, he challenged test subjects to coach rats through a maze. Half the group were told their rats were extremely intelligent and specifically trained. The other half were told that their rats were dumb. In fact, the rats were all the same. During the experiment, however, the smart rats performed well better than the dumb ones. This showed how the expectations of the coaches influenced even the performance of rats. Rosenthal then did the Pygmalion in School study together with Lenore Jacobson. At the beginning of the school year, a group of elementary school teachers were told that some of their new pupils had extraordinary talent and potential. This information, which was completely made up, was given about random average students in each class. All students had done the IQ test in advance. By the end of the year, the students that were described as more talented had significantly increased their performance in the IQ test compared to the rest of the class. Robert Rosenthal concluded, "When we expect certain behaviors of others, we are likely to act in ways that make the expected behavior more likely to occur."
We can see how the law of attraction isn't just about getting what you want, as many believe. It's about learning to shift your thoughts in a positive direction in order to reach a positive outcome. Not just to have nice things, but also to make the world a better place by the thoughts you project upon those around you. But how does one go about shifting their thoughts? A technique used by numerous professional athletes is visualization. And I have to say, there are some fantastic stories out there of how well this works. Let's look at some examples of pro athletes using visualization for their success.
Conor McGregor uses visualization to boost confidence and prepare for competition. Conor's vivid visualizations can help explain why he is so relaxed and confident when he makes the walk to the octagon. It's a similar story with Michael Phelps. In his book, he writes that he would visualize to prepare for competition and to motivate himself, sometimes for up to 2 hours in one sitting.
My dreams and visualizing kind of really played a role in making me motivated and helping me achieve the goals that I had.
Alex Honnold, an athlete who climbs some of the world's most challenging mountains without a rope, does the same thing as Phelps. As he writes in his book, sitting and thinking, hour after hour, visualizing every single move, everything that could possibly happen. That's what it takes to wrap your mind around a challenge such as the one I was about to attempt. I had deliberately visualized everything that might happen on the climb, including breaking a hold or just losing it and falling off. In a real sense, I performed the hard work of that free solo during the days leading up to it. Once I was on the climb, it was just a matter of executing. In terms of increasing focus and decreasing reaction times, a study of 200 martial artists found that visualization and self-talk reduced reaction times from 0.737 seconds to 0.659 seconds, roughly 10%. Although this may not seem like much, this is often the difference between winning or losing. An explanation for why this happens is rooted in a part of our brain called the reticular activating system. The reticular activating system acts as a filter. Out of all the information coming to our senses from the environment, it selects what will be noticed and given attention to by the conscious mind. By practicing visualization, you can prime your reticular activating system to help you notice and focus on important information during your competitions. In terms of practicing movement sequences, a Harvard study found that research subjects who mentally practiced a simple 5-finger piano exercise for 2 hours a day for 5 days made the same brain changes as the subjects who physically practiced the same activities, but without ever lifting a finger. Remarkably, visualization can also increase strength. In a similar experiment, 10 volunteers each imagined flexing one of their biceps as hard as they could 5 times a week. In a few weeks, they increased their bicep muscle strength by 13.5%, and they maintained that gain for 3 months after the training had stopped.
So now we know that our thoughts, words, behaviors, and actions all have an effect on our reality. And we know that by visualizing the reality we want and putting in the work to get there, we can make it happen. After all, those athletes didn't just visualize to get where they are. They paired visualization with real work in order to make it to the top. But what is it that makes all of this possible? Is there a scientific reason for this phenomenon? The answer lies in quantum physics. Now, this can be a bit of a broad and daunting subject, but it's fascinating nonetheless. Here's a simple and quick definition of quantum physics and how it works.
To understand this experiment, we first need to see how particles, or little balls of matter, act. If we randomly shoot a small object, say a marble, at the screen, we see a pattern on the back wall where they went through the slit and hit. Now, if we add a second slit, we would expect to see a second band duplicated to the right. Now, let's look at waves. The waves hit the slit and radiate out, striking the back wall with the most intensity directly in line with the slit. The line of brightness on the back screen shows that intensity. This is similar to the line the marbles make. But when we add the second slit, something different happens. If the top of one wave meets the bottom of another wave, they cancel each other out. So now there is an interference pattern on the back wall. Places where the two tops meet are the highest intensity, the bright lines, and where they cancel, there is nothing. So, when we throw things, that is, matter, through two slits, we get this, 2 bands of hits. And with waves, we get an interference pattern of many bands. Good so far. Now, let's go quantum. An electron is a tiny, tiny bit of matter, like a tiny marble. Let's fire a stream through one slit. It behaves just like the marble, a single band. So, if we shoot these tiny bits through 2 slits, we should get, like the marbles, 2 bands. What? An interference pattern. We fired electrons, tiny bits of matter through. But we get a pattern like waves, not like little marbles. How? How could pieces of matter create an interference pattern like a wave? It doesn't make sense. But physicists are clever. They thought, maybe those little balls are bouncing off each other and creating that pattern. So they decide to shoot electrons through one at a time. There is no way they could interfere with each other. But after an hour of this, the same interference pattern is seen to emerge. The conclusion is inescapable. The single electron leaves as a particle, becomes a wave of potentials, goes through both slits, and interferes with itself to hit the wall like a particle. But mathematically, it's even stranger. It goes through both slits, and it goes through neither. And it goes through just one, and it goes through just the other. All of these possibilities are in superposition with each other. Physicists were completely baffled by this. So they decided to peek and see which slit it actually goes through. They put a measuring device by one slit to see which one it went through and let it fly. But the quantum world is far more mysterious than they could have imagined. When they observed, the electron went back to behaving like a little marble. It produced a pattern of 2 bands, not an interference pattern of many. The very act of measuring or observing which slit it went through meant it only went through one, not both. The electron decided to act differently, as though it was aware it was being watched.
So we can see through quantum physics that the reason our thoughts become things is because the electrons and particles of matter around us tend to respond to how we think they are going to respond, just like they did in the slit experiment. After discovering all of this, it really made me ponder deeply on how I choose to use my thoughts every day. I observed how I thought about myself and others around me, or my current circumstances in life. I knew that if I chose to shift my thoughts in a positive direction, I could begin seeing the changes that would help my circumstances match the reality I desired. The results still continue to blow my mind every single day, and I would highly recommend learning to shift your thoughts and words as well in order to create the reality you have always wanted. I became so passionate about this that I actually wrote a book called The Law of Attraction for Love, in which I give my best advice on using the law of attraction to meet your soulmate or to heal a broken or ended relationship. So I would highly suggest checking that out, and there's a link in the description of this video to where you can find it. Thank you for watching, guys. If you liked this video, be sure to push the like button so I know you liked it, and also subscribe to this channel and hit the bell so you don't miss any other videos like this. If you made it this far, be sure to comment the secret word of the day, which is abundance. Talk to you later, guys. Bye!